Welcome back to the Mental Plateau podcast.
My name is Shreyas Girotra, a rising junior here at Hinsdale Central High School in Illinois. Today, we're back on the Mental Plateau with a very accomplished guest, and his name is Christopher Wilson. As you know, we talk about mental plateaus, but today we have the opportunity to expand our conversation from mental plateaus to such things like skill plateaus and even performance plateaus. It's an amazing opportunity that we have to talk to a former Marine who has also excelled in academia with universities like Princeton, Yale, and more.
So let's get right into it.
So, Chris, welcome onto the podcast. Would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Christopher Wilson. I'm a passionate archaeologist currently based in Hammond, Louisiana. My journey is a testament to resilience and evolving passions. After serving in the United States Marine Corps as a ground radio technician, I nurtured a deep love for mathematics and the great outdoors, especially from my deployment to the Middle East and training exercises in a variety of different terrains. My passions developed into a desire for higher learning and led me to Princeton University. Initially, I embarked on a mathematics journey, but I quickly realized my profound fascination with art and archaeology. It was a much stronger passion, and it really pulled me in. And while I was at Princeton, I delved into archaeological
Mm-hmm.
research, and I was able to get into really gripping topics like ancient Egyptian tattooing methods, Anatolian city structures, but mainly Greece and the ancient healing cult of Asclepius, who's the Greek god of medicine. I was able to travel for my studies, visiting Greece, Poland, Portugal, and Egypt. And while I was at Princeton, I also showcased my dedication and athletic prowess as a walk-on member of the men's heavyweight rowing team. And I was on that team all 4 years of my Princeton education. The pursuit of knowledge took me to Yale, where I obtained my Master's of Archaeology, and then to the University of Chicago for a Master's of Humanities, focusing on art history and ancient Greek pottery. Today, my commitments lie in cultural resource management and site preservation in the South. I work to ensure the cultural remains from different eras are protected, safe, and sometimes repatriated to groups and communities to whom the findings actually belong. Essentially, I work with the state, Native American communities, and local governments to address concerns over progress and protection. And I want to speak to you and your listeners, of course,
Mm-hmm.
about mental plateaus because believe me, I've definitely faced them. Navigating the challenges of the Marine Corps, transitioning to academia, and discovering my true passion were filled with moments of self-doubt and stagnation. I've learned that these plateaus are not roadblocks, but opportunities. These are special opportunities to reassess, gather strength, and leap even higher than before. Every challenge I face, academic shifts to athletic endeavors, was
Mm-hmm.
marked by moments of plateau. But these moments molded me. My mission here is to share my experience and provide you and your listeners with tools to recognize, confront, and ultimately overcome these plateaus. Our greatest strength often sprouts from these stagnant periods, and I want
Mm-hmm.
everyone to embrace them, learn from them, and
Yeah,
eventually rise above.
that's truly interesting, Chris. I mean, clearly you've went on quite a few endeavors, both academic and also physical, whether that ranges from your journeys of academia going from Yale to UChicago and so on, or even just your learnings in the Middle East, Poland, Portugal, and all the other places you mentioned. So clearly you've had quite a few perspectives to share, and you've also taken in and learned from a lot of cultures. And so, can you explain in your own words what is a mental plateau from the things that you've learned from your life, and basically how, from your perspective, you've taken it?
Yeah, uh, great question. To me, a mental plateau is a stage where progress seems to, like I said before, stagnate or stall.
Mm-hmm.
It can take place in almost every aspect of life, from learning to personal growth to physical strength.
Yeah.
It's akin to climbing a mountain and reaching flat area where
Mm-hmm.
despite your efforts, the ascent seems too far away and unreachable. This is often a really challenging phase, and where the usual strategies and efforts once yielded results, they no longer seem effective. The plateau can be frustrating. It makes you
Yeah.
doubt yourself and your abilities and can bring forth toxic feelings of complacency. At these times, a burst of motivation, fresh perspectives, and new approaches are critical. It's a these are invitations to rethink, seek inspiration, and rejuvenate your passion and break through that barrier, allowing you to keep climbing that mountain.
That truly is very, very detailed. And your take is very interesting, insightful, and in my perspective, one of the most accurate I've heard. On
Thank you.
obviously on a high school level, the mental plateaus I faced are nothing like the endeavors and the challenges you faced. So, given your background and being someone who's served in the United States Marine Corps, can you explain to my listeners how this played a role in your observing of your own mental plateaus and how you overcame this, especially at the young age of 18?
Yes. And I think I would like to start off by saying don't minimize your struggles. Everyone goes through them, and just don't see other people's struggles as ways of diminishing your efforts. You are working hard no matter what, even
Mm-hmm.
if it is something from just a high school experience. So,
Yeah.
uh, getting into my Marine Corps uh, timeline, I entered the Marine Corps envisioning battles of physical strength, but I
Mm-hmm.
quickly learned that the mind's battlegrounds were
Mm-hmm.
equally strenuous.
Yeah.
As new tasks unfolded for me in boot camp, where I had to learn so many new skills, one particular navigational challenge became my nemesis: maps and compasses, which shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
which should have been pretty straightforward tools, but they seemed to elude me. I was used to simple GPS from my phone, but
Yeah.
now each misstep I took during my training was a blow to my confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I was constantly either steering my team off course or struggling to set up a proper course cartographically. Yet the
Mm-hmm.
spirit of a Marine is one of dedication, adaptability, and perseverance. So I chose to face this obstacle head on.
Mm-hmm.
Dissecting the skills seemed like the logical first step. And so instead of seeking navigation as one large monster, I broke it up into smaller, digestible chunks. Every day, each component received its fair share of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding the mechanisms and flaws of compasses, triangulating positions, understanding terrains, or setting a bezel and following the course accurately. They each
Mm-hmm.
had its day. But despite the progress, I felt something was missing. And that's when Sergeant Van Beekum stepped in. He was one of my main drill instructors while I was at Paris Island.
Mm-hmm.
And Sergeant Van Beekum was not just an expert, but he was an exceptional teacher. And it's that instruction that I needed. His methodology was different, focused on nuances that often went overlooked. Each session with him was completely transformative, bringing forth new revelations. He often emphasized slow is smooth and smooth is fast,
Mm-hmm.
but he also used an acronym I still use to this day, which is KISS, meaning keep it simple. Uh, These mantras reiterated the importance of patience, precision, and repetition. As the
Hmm.
days progressed, the plateau became to seem less intimidating.
Yeah.
The Marine Corps is as much about individual prowess as it is about camaraderie. And Sergeant Van Beekam's mentorship was a testament to this spirit. Together, we ventured into the terrain, practicing real time navigation. His
Hmm.
feedback was instantaneous and constructive. It was invaluable. Uh, Not only did I overcome my plateau, but I also forged a bond of mutual respect and trust. It's
Hmm.
essential to remember that in challenging times like those, seeking guidance can often illuminate the path forward.
Your learning plateaus are in very interesting. I mean, both your compassion in the army as well as archaeology has revealed a lot not only to the audience but to myself on that main importance about having role models. As you mentioned with your sergeant, I also resonate with that too because one of my own mantras is to do it with all your effort or to not do it at all. I mean, the main image behind that, from my own perspective, is to ensure that you're going to do everything with importance and make sure that you really value things how they're supposed to be valued. With that said, I really am fascinated with how you describe that overall theme of the learning plateau and how you applied it to several parts, despite that be in archaeology, on the fields, or even on the Mayan fields, as you said. So, being that you were a rower at Princeton University, did you ever experience any sort of performance plateaus?
All the time. Uh, Princeton's rowing team has a legacy that is intertwined with tales of triumphs and tribulations.
Mm-hmm.
As I began my journey on the vast waters of Lake Carnegie, uh, it became a second home for me. Early mornings, rigorous training, and synchronized rhythm of oars cutting through the water, they really defined my days. But
Mm-hmm.
as my first Ivy League championship started to approach, I started to sense shift. My strokes, which were once powerful and synchronized,
Mm-hmm.
began to falter. My team's harmony was disrupted by me, and I knew I had to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how. I'd hit this performance plateau, and I needed to evaluate on how to overcome it. Uh, Reviewing our training footage, discrepancies in my form eventually
Mm-hmm.
became painfully evident. Minute deviations in my elbow and wrist angle, my posture and my timing, they really culminated in significant disruptions.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing a problem is often the first step to addressing it. So, with my coach's assistant, we embarked on targeted training. Each session was tailored to address and correct specific flaws. The rowing machine and I, we became inseparable, and simulating a variety of water conditions and resistance levels really
Mm-hmm.
helped set the stage for me. Adapting wasn't easy. My muscles ached, frustrations ran high, and there were extreme moments of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, like every sunrise on Lake Carnegie, it brought renewed vigor. Each draw was a promise of a newer beginning, an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to push my limits. And as the championship drew closer, the dedication started paying off. My strokes
Yeah.
regained their power, boat's rhythm was restored, and my performance plateau was finally behind me. The championship day was a blend of anxiety and excitement. The past week's efforts were about to be tested.
Mm-hmm.
As our boat glided onto the water, every stroke just felt right. The lessons from the plateau were evident in my performance. Not only did my team and I did not only did we give it our best, but I also achieved a personal best.
Mm-hmm.
While we might not have won the race, I had overcome my performance plateau and was ready to work even harder so that I can try again. And overcoming these types of plateaus requires deep introspection, targeted efforts, and a deep, undying spirit.
Hmm. That is amazing. I mean, that really demonstrates the importance to learn from our weaknesses and the importance to have that motivation. I mean, from one of my latest reads, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, I mean, I'm taking that same message from you and him, how it's important to keep on pushing, how it's not only just that, but to learn from your own weaknesses and despite competition, understand that's all about personal enhancement. I mean, I even see this in my own life with the sports I play, like tennis or even basketball with my friends. Just learning where can you be better, and this even expands to academia, learning from your own mistakes in tests, exams, and so on.
Definitely.
So I know that this can apply to a lot of parts and a lot of listeners, and a lot of people all over the world. And knowing that they would dream of attending Princeton and rowing for their teams, did you ever feel there was any sort of mental plateau regarding your academics?
All the time. Uh, I can think of many examples, but I think my most memorable example of mental plateau came from my time as a graduate student at Yale.
Mm-hmm.
Yale has an ambiance that just buzzes with intellect, ambition, and just a relentless pursuit of knowledge,
Yeah.
unlike any environment I've ever been in.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, while it is an academic dream filled with opportunities and challenges as the semester rolled off, the weight of academic demands really began to take a toll on me. Late night study sessions,
Yeah.
research projects, seminar preparations, it consumed every waking hour. The culmination of these pressures led to a motivational plateau with my academics.
Mm-hmm.
I questioned my decisions and felt on the brink of exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than succumbing to this overwhelming feeling, I sought to strategize once again. I began fragmenting tasks, setting micro goals for every week, every day, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this breakdown made the journey seem much less daunting. Achieving these smaller goals brought moments of accomplishment and motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I also set myself regular breaks and rewards for my work. For every 45 minutes, for example, of
Yeah.
reading, I would take a 15-minute break. And then
Mm-hmm.
for every major project or paper I finished, I would reward myself with a good meal.
Yeah.
Uh, Slowly, the broader vision for my academic journey became clearer. Every paper submitted, every presentation delivered was one step closer to that vision.
Mm-hmm.
Connecting with peers was another revitalizing step. Sharing my experiences, my challenge, and strategies with these peers offered new perspectives. I wasn't alone in my journey. We were in this together.
Mm-hmm.
And drawing motivation and support during tough times, celebrating small little victories like what I was overcoming became
Yeah.
our ritual. Mentorship from professors and more advanced graduate students added another layer of guidance. Their
Mm-hmm.
experiences, insights, and advice were like beacons.
Yeah.
And visualization was a very potent tool for me. Imagining the day of graduation, the sense of achievement, providing provided a lot of motivation to push through.
Mm-hmm.
Every study session, every project was a means
Yeah.
to an end. As days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months,
Yeah.
the motivational reservoirs replenished themselves. I was getting more and more excited, more and more
Yeah.
motivated. I knew I could do it, and I was doing it. It was a kind of positive feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
The once daunting tasks seemed achievable. The journey taught me the power of strategy, community, and vision. in overcoming these motivational, educational, academic plateaus.
Hmm. On my scale as well, even as a high schooler, or even as you advance in the later stages of your life, we all see these things, whether they be larger or smaller in scales. Obviously, one thing I can resonate with is how in junior year, all these classes, it's always made such a big deal on how academically tough it can be, how you have to spread yourself so thin on so many levels, whether that be APs, extracurriculars, and all that stuff. And as you mentioned, those small goals you set for your homework or those breaks you gave yourself for reading, that really establishes a well-disciplined mindset because you can realize from that, from setting small steps or small goals, as you mentioned, in reality, it's all for that big moment, that big goal. And as you reach the end, that's when you realize the work that you put in, the value of that work, and all that stuff. But consequently, that also draws out the importance of mental health. Because with all of these things that you have to focus on, it also puts a lot of stress on your mind. That's when it becomes important
Definitely.
to, yeah, that's when it becomes very important to ensure that you're talking with your peers, you're talking with your community, you're doing things that you enjoy to not, to, as you said, replenish yourself, replenish your reservoirs. So that really seems amazing that you're able to use so many ways to deal with your mental plateaus. Do you have any suggestions for my listeners who are probably going to deal with these as well as any skill plateaus?
Sure. Yeah, let's start with embracing the basics. Uh,
Hmm.
remember KISS. Keep it
Yeah.
simple. Often going back to foundational skills and refining them can lead
Hmm.
to instant breakthroughs. Don't overlook the fundamentals. Next, I would suggest stay disciplined. As you were saying, discipline, it
Hmm.
means doing what you need to do, even when you don't want to. And
Yeah.
consistency, that's key.
Yeah.
Another is adaptability. Just like in combat, being rigid can be a downfall. You need to be
Hmm.
open to new techniques, new strategies, and the input of others.
Yeah.
And when it comes to that input, my next recommendation would be to seek that feedback. Don't rely
Hmm.
solely on self-assessment. Peers, teachers, mentors, friends, they can
Hmm.
all offer valuable insights that you might overlook. They
Hmm.
are there to help you. Don't minimize the amazing impact that they can have. I
Hmm.
also would suggest to challenge yourself. Step out of your comfort zone regularly. This means
Yeah.
tackling tougher projects or competing at higher levels, but it keeps things fresh and exciting. And
Hmm.
I think the last thing I would recommend would be developing your mental fortitude. Develop
Yeah.
that resistance. Plateaus are only temporary. Our mindsets determine how long they stay.
I completely agree with you. That idea of challenging yourself, and as I like to call it, progressive overload. You want to make sure that you're putting yourself to an extreme, a healthy extreme though, so that you can expand your boundaries and also learn from them. And that factor
Mhm.
about feedback and how it can come from a variety of sources really moved me because as I see in my own society, some of us are reluctant to get feedback from others because we might be sensitive, but also we also worry for how their opinions of us might change. And we need to understand that in the end, it's all for our own personal development. And in the end, you are going to become a better person no matter who you are. And that consistency, or as you said with those things like KISS, the acronym, it really has a lot to say about these motives and these morals. So that really seems amazing, and those are really great suggestions. Do you have any suggestions for my listeners who are probably going to go through any performance plateaus, perhaps?
Yes. As a former Princeton University rower, teamwork and resilience were at the heart of our success.
Mm-hmm.
To to high school students for facing performance plateaus in team sports, I would suggest focusing on team cohesion.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, a team is as strong as its weakest link. Build that trust, support one another, and foster open communication. I would
Mm-hmm.
suggest refining your technique. Once again, go back to the basics. Small technical corrections can sometimes lead to the most significant improvements,
Yeah.
from the angle of one's wrist to arching your back. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Taking the time to build muscle memory also is one of the most simple skills, and it should come first. Uh, and building that muscle memory first, uh, by doing so, it becomes second nature, and you can then focus on improving even more advanced issues.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think having a variety in training is important. Incorporate different training regimens or routines to challenge the body, to challenge the mind. Cross training can be particularly effective.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then, just as in academics and your personal life, set those micro goals
Mm-hmm.
to defeat those performance plateaus. Break larger goals down into smaller, manageable tasks and celebrate
Mm-hmm.
each accomplishment. Uh, I also think your mindset really matters. Mental strength is just as crucial as physical prowess.
Yeah.
Visualization, meditation, and positive self talk can be very transformative. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, I think seeking external feedback is one of the most important aspects, especially when it comes to sports, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because a fresh perspective, maybe from a coach, maybe from a senior, they can often give you insight
Yeah.
that you hadn't even considered, that you haven't seen.
Yeah. I completely agree with your idea, and I like that one factor that you said about team cohesion. I mean, as an athlete on my school's tennis team, I can also resonate with that on a different level. Because one of the main things we learn there is not only about doing those sports in high school, but it's about that peer bonding. I mean, we need to make sure that we're all doing well and we all talk with each other. Because as you said, you are like held up by your weakest link and you are like they represent you. So you need to make sure that everyone's on the same level, everyone's solid, everyone has the same understanding and same trust bond with each other. And as you said, those micro goals are really, really important as that leads to big progress and all that is really empowered by your mindset, as you said. So thanks, Chris, for those insightful suggestions for our listeners. And being that you attended Yale, I'm sure that the demands of having that education pushed your limits. Do you have any suggestions on beating those motivational plateaus?
Yeah, regarding academics, as a former Yale and University of Chicago graduate student, thriving amidst the pressures of elite institutions taught me invaluable lessons. For high school students facing motivational plateaus, I would recommend pu- pu- purpose over pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose over pressure. Reconnect with why. Why did you choose this path? And then
Yeah,
that way you can ground yourself. Grounding yourself in purpose can rekindle that motivation.
completely.
Breaking down tasks. Large projects or assignments can often feel very overwhelming. Divide them into smaller, manageable tasks to alleviate that anxiety and create your
Yeah.
momentum. Don't
Mm-hmm.
forget to reward yourself. You worked hard and you deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Next, I would suggest to seek mentorship. Engage with professors, alumni, and peers who've been in your shoes. Their insights can offer very fresh perspectives and
Mm-hmm.
offer very good advice.
Yeah.
Schedule breaks. It's essential to rest and recharge. Regular breaks can boost productivity and maintain mental well-being. I
Mm-hmm.
want people to celebrate the small wins. Uh, the journey is the journey to success is a series of small steps.
Mm-hmm.
Recognize and celebrate those minor achievements because they will fuel your motivation. And
Yeah.
lastly, I want people to stay curious. Elite schools
Mm-hmm.
value inquisitiveness. Uh,
Yeah.
Even in routine tasks, seek deeper understanding or a novel approach.
Yeah. I completely agree with those ideas. I mean, just starting from the beginning, that first idea of purpose over pressure. I mean, again, that relates to the idea of having that vision. And as you said, it connects with micromanagement and all those things, which is really very important when it comes to accomplishing larger goals in the long term scale. And another thing that you mentioned that I really resonated with was momentum. I mean, there's always a starting point, and that can be tough. But as soon as you get after that point, you can realize the efficiency of your capability and how you can accomplish such great things if you put small goals and if you can achieve those small goals, and that slowly builds your momentum. And finally, to wrap it up, it's also important, as you said, to stay curious. I mean, that learning factor, always being ready to learn. I mean, some of the articles I've read from the New York Times, I forgot which one it was titled, but it was talking about how progressive overload, as well as staying curious, even as a university professor, for example, it will allow you to, while students are supposed to learn from you, you can also learn from your students because the environment is always changing, and it's also very important to adapt.
It
Um,
is.
with that said, wow, I mean, the learning in the past 30 minutes has far exceeded my expectations than I would
But
have ever expected. I mean, with that said,
that's
your
why I'm here.
mindset. Yeah, yeah. And with that said, your mindset and your approach on micromanagement, team cohesion, KISS, and discipline, and so much more have really moved me. And I cannot thank you enough for sharing the experience with not only myself, but our peer and fellow peers on Mental Plateau who would find this more than inspiring. With that said,
Thank
Chris,
you.
any last words?
Just be ready for anything. Help other people, seek that help, stay motivated, keep that adaptability,
Mm-hmm.
and just reward yourself. You honestly deserve it. Don't minimize your efforts.
Completely. I agree with the idea of self recognition and, as David Goggins said, staying hard. With that said, thanks so much, and remember to be healthy as a whole, as mental wellness plays a role. Thank you.